When the world changes, it's hard for you to change. What you once knew is what you must forget in order to live in this new world, but you can't accept yourself to change for a world that you don't adore. This is why we have revolutions in the first place, because we want to stop change in order to preserve our character and our soul. That's how swords now feel in a world where we now use guns, and that's how Gintama shows the true colors of change. Hi, I'm your host MC Starscream, and I'm here to talk about whether you should watch Gintama. Before we get to the story of Gintama, we gotta go over the history that makes the story. In the time of the Edo period, or samurai era, aliens from outer space come to try to live on Earth. The aliens, called Amanto, didn't want to make the human population extinct, and rather wanted to make peace. They would rule the Earth and no one would be killed under one condition. The era of the samurai must not continue. People who call themselves samurai must lose their swords and be part of a new generation. To summarize, a new era must begin by burying the old era. This raged the samurais as they didn't want to lose their character and spirit, so they waged war against the Yamato, but however, lost to them, thus losing their swords and now scattered from the new generation. Years later after the war, we now follow the adventures of our main character, Sakata Gintoki, a samurai who is a freelancer and takes any job he's given. Instead of having a real sword, he uses a wooden sword so he doesn't break the rules and keeps the spirit of the samurai. He fought in the war against the Yamato, but after the samurai's defeat, he sort of moved on. He is not happy with how things have turned in the world, but he can live with it. He's not your typical protagonist who always saves the day, helps someone in need, and gets attention. He'd rather play pachinko, get drunk, and get with the woman, but not the violent ones. In his adventures, he would try to get jobs where there is the least trouble. But we all know, in a shonen anime, that's impossible. He is boring sometimes, not much about him, drives a scooter motorcycle, wears the same clothes, always stubborn, and reads jump magazines. No, literally, he reads the magazines we read in real life, breaking the fourth wall at its best. Instead of staying on the job, he accepts any job he's given. So he opened a business called Odd Jobs, or the Japanese translation, Yoruzuwa. He finds people he works with, such as Shinpachi, a boy who is the son of a dojo and wants to become a samurai himself, and Kagura, an alien-looking human little girl whose race is the strongest of all species. These three take many jobs and encounter many new friends and old enemies. The characters in Gintama are spreaded. As the story continues, we are introduced to more and more characters. Shinpachi's sister, Otai, the Shinsengun police like Kondo, Sogo, and Hijikata, the Oniwaban like Sachan and Zenzo, Gintoki's old friend Katsura, the peace-loving terrorist with his mascot Elizabeth, and old friend turned villain Takasugi Shinsuke, the violent-loving terrorist, and etc. I could go on, but I'll limit on what to show and let you find out. All the characters in Gintama are all awesome. They all have a story in them. We see the development as the story goes on. They all change in certain situations, and we see how much they interact with each other. They all like each other, but they hate each other at the same time. It's like a huge web of likes and hates, and that is funny to see in Gintama. Setting. It is the Samurai Edo period mashed up with the future high-tech Star Wars setting. How cool is that? We still have people dressed up like the Edo period, and some buildings resemble the village, but the majority is the future-looking stuff. You could say it is the Star Wars in Japanese form. We have flying floating cars, robots, flying warships, very good architecture and new buildings in the future, and even space is a setting like different planets. It is a past, present, future setting, and it succeeds in Gintama. The animation is good, and it gets better as it evolves throughout the series. However, there are some mistakes when changing the scenes. When the scene changes, there's something added extra that we didn't see from the previous scene, so often we can get confused. The music in Gintama is very good. It has heavy metal in it, and at times makes the anime cool to hear. We love how the music shifts when scene changes in certain situations. We got comedy soundtracks and action soundtracks, and it blends well. What I love about Gintama's music is that everyone has their own theme song, like Hasegawa Mado's theme song. He's represented as a homeless man who lost everything, but is sometimes useless to the story. However, his theme song is played a lot, showing that some situations reflect on him, like everyone else's theme songs when each scene is played. Let me tell you one thing about the series before you watch this. The show is 80% comedy and 20% action. That means you will be getting more comedy and less action in episodes. In fact, it is so random you don't know if it's action or if it's comedy. Two things to get out of the way is that Gintama parodies other animes. They don't care about the copyright because they don't know what copyright is. They will remark and reference quotes from hit animes like Dragon Ball Z, One Piece, Naruto, Bleach, and they'll talk like they are on the TV show and often talk to the audience. It feels like we are watching a show, making a show, while it uses and makes fun of other shows. Confusing as hell. When you watch Gintama, the comedy is at its best. You laugh at not just the jokes and the situations, but how stupid and dumb people make it look. Like literally. The action can be funny sometimes. You cannot take this anime seriously at all. It's just something to have fun watching, not something to get your hopes up. Really, you can't invest in a show, but rather it tells you that you have to enjoy it. So what is it like for the action when comedy is out of the picture? Is it good? The answer is yes. I can say that Gintama is very underrated in action anime. It's very good in this category because sword fighting still goes well. We get funny fights, sword fights, fist fights, gun fights, and toilet fights. As the story progresses, fights get better as they turn from funny to serious. They are short at first, but they are very exciting to watch when stakes are high and how cool the fight is. It's not a shonen battle series with the majority of fights because the show is focused on quality over quantity. That's why we don't see it as popular as Naruto and Dragon Ball Z. A great example of this quality is Gintoki's fights. Before his epic battle with Takasuri Shinsuke, which is great, you should check it out, he had these fights with characters like Hosen, Jiraiya, Jirocho, and Oboro. All these fights are so different from each other, as in Hosen's battle, he uses aspects of strength and endurance, while Hosen uses strength as his weapons to break his enemy. Gintoki uses endurance in order to wear out the enemy. Hosen was a character who was the most powerful in strength, but had the biggest weakness ever. Jiraiya's battle was very different from every battle of the Shonen. His fight was a change of animation techniques and style of fighting. They were in this dark room, and Jiraiya was an assassin with amazing speed. His speed was depicted with this animation style that I couldn't quite describe clearly. The speed was so fast that when attacking, he wasn't there. The only thing you see is Gintoki still in his 2D form, while Jiraiya leaves flashes of his image. This all happened in a dark room, and it was great to visualize what type of situation he was in. It then shifts when it goes black and white, changing the atmosphere and scenery, thus making the fight feel more alive and realistic. Then Jirocho's battle, a samurai who is the same level as Gintoki, but when they have an army of assassins blocking their way, they join forces by killing them all in order to get them out of their way for them to fight, thus creating the bloodiest two-man versus an army fight scene ever in my opinion. Last but not least, Oboro's fight, where it all happens in one sequence. They fight while falling in midair and use everything they know, and it's so exciting to watch. You see, Gintama is great at battles because it uses different techniques, styles, and sequences in order to differentiate each fight from theirs in other shonen anime. Best thing about these fights is the theme given. There is a lesson to be learned, which makes the emotions and the art strong. That's why Gintama's fights are great, but rare to see often. Last but not least, I'm going to talk about the sequences of the story, action, and comedy of this anime. This review is supposed to prove that Gintama is worth watching, but if you start the anime without knowing anything at all, then you will probably drop it. Gintama does have a bad start. It drags the story, and I'll get to the point. How the story is structured, well, that is very complicated. What you need is patience because the length of this anime series is very long. Like right now, as of 2017, there's about 300 episodes and still going on. My honest opinion for watching this is look up the arc list. You can choose which one to watch, but right now I'm going to show some of my favorites in each category. This part in the review is to show how interesting the stories are in Gintama. There are some spoilers, but I'll keep it at a minimum. Note, I will still review these arcs another time. Let's start with the comedy arcs. Amazing arc is the scandal arc, where Gintoki gets drunk and sleeps with a huge number of female side characters. If you don't know, having romance in certain types of anime genres are forbidden for some reason. So Gintoki is like paranoid that this event will ruin the story as well as the show, so he's got to fix it. Infant Strife is good, where Gintoki must raise and bear an infant who for some reason looks just like him as if he was his son. Soul Switch is an amazing twist where Gintoki's and Hijikata's souls are switched, thus changing the roles. Oh, if you should know, a lot of things happen and revolve around Gintoki. Back to the topic, Renho arc is just too good with everything about Elizabeth. Truth is, there are so many great comedy arcs that you could have any of them as a favorite. But the arc that I think stands out is a love chorus arc. In this arc, people can get girlfriends through this virtual game, and Gintoki must prove that getting a girl electronically will not do the same in reality. If you're in for the action Gintama, then you must watch the first action arc it has, the Benizakura arc, where Gintoki and Katsu are tangled up against the Harusame. The Kabuchika Fort Davis is another one, where the setting is expanded and how the city is governed with criminal gangs. Courtesan of a Nation is a great one, as Gintoki must keep a promise by revolting against the government. The Yagyu arc is fine, but I think the best one out of them is the Yoshiwara in Flames, where Gintoki must find a boy's mother in a criminal prostitution city with a conspiracy hidden. It has some great story moments, amazing action, and phenomenal character performances. I was going to put Shogun Assassination Plot Arc as the number one action arc in Gintama, but I'll leave that out and probably do a video on that another time. Gintama also has some amazing emotional arcs, like the Okita Mitsuba arc, in which Sogo's sister comes to Edo but doesn't have much time to live. Thorny arc is good as it shows the balance and loyalty of a commander and his officer, also expanding the setting of how the government works. In my opinion, the best emotional arc that I believe is the School of the Beam Saber arc, in which Shinpachi's and Otai's friend named Obi Hajime, or should I say Obi-Wan, comes back from the dead. He's alive due to having a robotic body, an amazing guy, but the breaking news comes when it is revealed that he is the enemy of this arc. This man is like a family member to Shinpachi and Otai, and they try to stop, no, beg Gintoki to just let him live so they can feel like a family once more. You don't see Shinpachi and Otai begging someone they hate not to kill someone, and that shows how much they care for him. It's truly heartbreaking to see how they react when they have to put down such an amazing person. That's why Gintama's emotional arcs does well. But I think the best example that makes Gintama such a household name with its great storytelling, great action moments, great comedy moments, and listen to all other shows is none other than the Gintama arc. To prove it's awesome, here is the story. Gintama was replaced as a main character with another version of him, better than him in every category. Yeah, he was replaced because he's not a good main character, and not everybody forgets who he is. This replacement is doing a better job than him. He does everything right and makes everyone happy, like we all want in our other anime. You could say he's the perfect version of a protagonist, but the truth is, even if it's just a TV show, there is no perfect protagonist. Even if he's better than him in every way, there are things more special than just the beauty of something. If you should know, I believe perfection is impossible, and this story proves that well. Gintama is not perfect, but not every anime is perfect. There are some flaws, and this show reminds us of that. We should know that in Gintama, some arcs are good, some arcs are bad, some are not the greatest, but the lesson is that we are given with different things that we can share special, even if they're not what we desire. So, my thoughts. The first time I watched this, I expected great action samurai fighting, great story arcs, lovable characters, and epic moments. I was so wrong the first time I watched it. All my expectations were off by a mile. It was all comic to me at first. They introduced all the characters and I liked them all, but there was no story, no objective, and no goal at all. I wasn't getting any action at all or intense moments. Only thing I was getting was memorable, funny moments. For me, I'm not a funny anime watcher. I was about to drop the anime, but I decided to stick with it and see how it goes. I decided to change how I look at anime as not just action and story, but more on comedy. In fact, I changed how I see this anime by asking Gintama this question: what is it trying to prove? The answer is nothing, because you can make up any answer you want. This came from a character named Abuto. He said life is a multiple choice quiz. The catch? There is no wrong answer, because any choice shows the honesty of what you want. Gintama is like a multiple choice quiz because it has every choice in it. There are no wrong answers at all. As I progressed through episodes, I grew to love Gintama even more. I always laugh at the jokes and situations. I love the build up to a fight and the story in each arc. I was never disappointed. It's hard to get used to, but it's worth it. Conclusion: Gintama is a must-watch for people who like comedy and action anime. In fact, it is not just any anime genre. It's its own anime genre. So for the verdict, I give Gintama a 8.7 out of 10 for awesome. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and stay tuned for more videos.